Hi everyone, so in this one I want to go back to February the 2nd, 2024, some things that I had written about a BK, okay? I'm going to get this out the way and then I'm also going to record some more on this case. So we know after the 23rd we can probably trust a lot more of what's coming up. I did try to watch a crime channel that's covering some of the stuff, but I feel a lot of it's around speculation. I've even noticed that there's harboring on about the, you know, that flight that was from Air India to I think Gatwick in London, and about one of the pilots had done the fuel, but there's a lot of harboring that he did it because he was depressed and stuff like that, and he was coming to the end of his career, and I just feel like some of that is just wrong for people to judge. So where I'm going with this is I clicked on it and then I felt that they were talking about a bit more speculation, so I stopped, and I thought I've got a lot to cover that I'd like to cover in this case as well. So if you allow me in this one to get through some of the things that I've noted previously, I also have from after or just before my last reading, which I did maybe about 5 months ago. I did a reading and then I did some more information or channeling, you can say. I also want to go through the, that evening. A lot of people will say that this was right, that's right. I do want to say is that be kind to people. Like if the psychic is being authentic and saying that this is what they got and they're totally off, I don't know why I'm saying this on my channel, right? But just be kind. Like if they're off, they're off. To a certain extent, a lot of what we, a lot of, I noticed a lot of these comments tend to be on people that follow various channels, and so whoever they feel is been the most accurate in one of the things, then they believe them in every single thing, and so they will go against anyone else, and that other person could be right. I feel like I'm doing an anti-bully protest right now. Anyway, I don't know why that just came through. I do think BK had some sort of trouble in relationships, but also in the family home. So I know his mom and dad are still together, but I think one of them could have been a bit controlling. There is an issue there I see with a parent, and I'm not really sure if this could be controlling, a little bit abuse. What I want to say is that what I'm going to say is nothing of an excuse for what was done. It's not to protect anyone. It's not to go against anyone. I'm just telling you what I, wrote down about it. Also about the 4 victims, just briefly a sentence for each one. I found that notebook. And just to give you an idea before everything sort of came out. So let's go through, and then I also want to do one on Ethan and Xana, because I was getting something coming through and I'll elaborate that in that separate content. So firstly, thank you for those of you that are supporting and have been very kind in your comments. BK is the type of person that you will be, I'm going back to February the 2nd, 2024. You could be in a coffee shop and, you see a person and they're looking down, maybe a newspaper or something, and they look up and they've got this stone cold face and you're like, my God, creepy, I don't know what to do, this person's creepy. But for example, if they're with a friend, they could be stone cold and then they crack a joke and they just smile, or they look down and you're sat there and you notice someone with, a stone cold face, kind of like emotionless, and they look up and they just give you a gentle smile. Now, if that's someone that looks warm, you think, oh, it's nice they've given me a smile. But if not, you're like, oh my God, creep, giving me the creeps. That's the type of thing I get with him. It's not that he doesn't feel anything at all. It's actually that he feels quite a lot intensely, and there's an overwhelm of that intense emotions. So what do I mean by that, right? You can either take that intensity that you have, that some people might not have, and channel it to really succeed in certain goals in life, or you can channel it in decisions that take you down a different path. And I think we all have those choices in life. With him, obviously, he's gone down this path. And I do, a subscriber asked a question on if I think if BK has practiced on an old couple. I'll pull cards on that. I can tell you what I get psychically, and I'll pull cards. I'll do that in the next reading. I also have a question that I'm interested to pull cards on that doesn't relate to that old couple, but something else. So there is an erratic behavior that can happen. It's not typical markings. During the arrest time that's coming up, I feel there's a backwards energy where it won't necessarily work straight away. He has the energy of a potential of massive breakthroughs, but there is also an ego where he is intelligent, he's mechanical, he's analytical, but he's not as smart as he can be. He's not as smart as he can be or thinks he is in certain times of ego. He can also tap into spirituality, and that would have been where life was going to push him into, to really drive into those intense emotions and call in spirit. The depth of studying crime and psychology fits probably what would be his chart. But then again, I'm not an astrologist. It fits justice, death, transformation. And that reminds me, what I'm reading now is, you know that picture where he's gone like that? It gives me morgue energy. And I feel that when he took that picture, it wasn't like, I've done the Xings only. I feel it was also that he, it was kind of like, I'm clean, I'm dusted, like everything's done kind of thing. It's not like, I don't know how to explain this. It's more like I've cleaned up, I've done everything, I've cleaned up, everything's closed, everything's clean. So I presume that he also tried as best as he could to clean up after him, even in the car, like a bag of putting certain things in there. And I do believe if he didn't have a face mask and gloves that I see is not like medical gloves, it's thick gloves, he would have had some markings or maybe a bruise. Not so much a bruise, but I did see a scratch on his face, and it makes sense because he wore a mask that picture that is allegedly taken a couple of hours after. Now, what I am not really understanding, he finished around 4. So they say he also took that picture 2 hours after, but he also called his dad less than 2 hours. So he called his dad. That's something else I want to cover separately. Before 6 a.m. Now, why he did that, I'll tell you why. He did that because he was trying to balance the part of him that's just done it and a part of him as this other side of part of him, the side where balanced life, you know, when one is like, you've gone erratic, chaotic here, you try to ground yourself through balancing your moral compass of this side of you, this side, this type of person, this, let's say 2 people, this side of you, this type of person. So by balancing that, connecting to that side of life, which would then be going to uni, or if they wasn't off, like, I don't know, whatever you would do on a daily basis, speak to your mum and dad, etc. It balances that erratic emotion and what was just done. And like I said, I wouldn't have been surprised if they had found like vomit, either in the house, outside the house, but I think more in the car. Let's go back. So he has a potential of really achieving his goals and breakthroughs. I talked about his ego. There are female problems. He can be seen as awkward and weird, although if you spoke to him, you could have intellectual conversations. His ideas can be wild. He tends to think he is right regardless if he is or isn't. So with him having those wild ideas, what I mean by that is that if you don't get those wild ideas in check and you obsess over them, you can go down certain routes, can't you? You can go to obsessive. And I do think he had OCD. And areas that I feel he obsessed are, which is probably not a surprise given crime and psychology, was justice, death, transformation, crime, occult, the hidden kind of the psyche. So if you're thinking of that day and night, watching it day and night, you actually get pulled in. And this is one thing that I want to do about his motive as well. It's not one motive. So people that are like, he was obsessing over, I think they're saying it's Maddie. And now that I see thumbnails saying it was Maddie, it was Maddie, it was Maddie, I have to sit and meditate and disconnect from that, which takes time. And that's why I don't like to look at anything before I do something, because it makes it harder to disconnect in terms of what you're actually getting just without any interference. And that's why I say to you, if there are psychics that are just well off, but they've been authentic and they're saying what they get, it could, you know, usually it's us that's trying to translate it that we might not be picking up the right message. And the fact of the matter is, none of us know 100% what is happening or what happened. And that's also because, you know, after the 23rd, there'll be more information where you'll be able to piece the puzzles together. I've mentioned in the last reading, there is a hidden, like, unintentional, intentional person that aided it, guided something, right? That's in the slightest. Anyway, let's go back. His ideas can be wild. He tends to think he's right regardless if he is. Good points. He can be very loyal, reliable, and he does recognize when someone provides love, although he cannot copy it. He cannot elaborate the same kind of emotion as much as he tries. Around the year, he might feel some identity or questioning himself. There might be a divide or something wrong within the home or parents. That's the other thing I want to mention. Recently, I found out, you know, in the last reading, I said I think he has some German descent. Just what I'm getting. Not good or bad. I don't mean it that way. I think every country, every culture, every religion has good and bad. It's the way the person wants to manipulate it. There's certain countries and cultures that do my head in more. And also you experience it, like you can experience a bad group of someone from this country or that culture, and it's just like, I don't want to, I just want to stay away from that culture, race, demographic, whatever it is. And that's fine, isn't it? Because that's the experience you've had. So on that, I said that I pulled up to know about his family, so it gives me a bit about his father was a maintenance worker, his mother was a paraphraser or something at the school. So his parents worked at the school, and then he's got two sisters. One of them is not much is known about her, and I think that's the mental health one or the other one. But it also put at the end, both sisters were fired after he was questioned that it's him. And I think that's just totally wrong. Like, if there was nothing wrong with them in their job and their brother committed this, I think it's wrong to fire someone for that reason. I think it's absolutely, I don't agree with it. I don't know what you think. I think it's not them, is it? It's not their fault their brother is down this path. I don't know what you think. One parent, I think, or could have been controlling. There is issues with authority, and he could have run away from home or disappeared or something just masked if he didn't run away. He could have had a fight in public. And he was very stressed about the bad relationships that he was having in his life. In his health, I see 2 bouts of depression, and a certain year it was for a 2-year period. So he was hit with depression. Then I've got, so let's think of the fear this shaped Washington state. It seems like this might have been a small state or city. And it also shaped Washington, which is next door to Idaho. I presume a lot of students go back and forth between kind of like it's kind of like sister cities. Forgive me if I don't have this fully right, okay? Because I'm going. It doesn't mean if you have sort of this energy that you are going to be a SK. He was studying, so this is partly, some of this is also partly what I did last week. He is studying PhD at Washington State University and was continuing his life. So he was older than other students, wasn't he? He was 31. He is very emotional, but he doesn't show it, and he can be difficult to deal with if his head's not in the right place. What I mean by that, if he's being stubborn, he knows it all, etc. He's so I've said about, there's a silent ache in him. He doesn't know it either. He also feels like the ache that he sometimes feels, he doesn't know how to handle it. He takes drugs to numb. I said the word crap. He takes drugs to numb and give the edge off how he's feeling. I'm going dizzy. Wow. He has OCD and he can obsess over something. He's very strong-willed if he puts his mind to something. He is into psychology and crime, but he's very intelligent. But as detailed as he is, his own obsession and adrenaline left him sloppy in this incident. He has the ability to see the big picture, but he is also a bit more extra in the areas of crime, deep psyche, death, transformation, and justice. And he needs to tap those ideas into a healthy output, where he can use it to transform his life, or it will take a deviant, darker way. Got something about a suspect was aware of something at a gas station and took a recording that could have been handed to the police, that aided the police, as opposed to police being a step ahead in this. It was that helped the police get to him. And I want to pull cards of when he was arrested with his dad in the car and see what I want to add. Did he feel during that time the police were onto him for those things, as for what he did, or was he too obnoxious? The police were tracking him even though he didn't quite know. So these are the questions that I want to ask. He feels supremacy, and there's dominance issues there. There's control as well. I feel like he couldn't tap into the raging power all the time into a healthy way. He had a lot of endorphins in him and he wanted to tap into those endorphins, and the way he would be through the rage. He has jealous tendencies and he can go from 0 to 100. I've said that before. There is a quiet, faint side of narcissism there. Now, I want to say something about narcissism. A lot gets said about narcissism. Everyone gets labelled as narcissism. As well, recently, everyone's getting labelled as ADHD, autistic, spectrum. You know, some people might take this the wrong way, but please, and it's people that are actually, let me tell you something. I know someone who was not diagnosed with a schizophrenia or anything through their childhood. They started dabbling with drugs, and it's only recently in their adult age, that they have been diagnosed with schizophrenia. I can guarantee you it's the rugs, then trying to really get off the rugs, so going towards opiates. and going towards painkillers and then trying to get off those and relapsing and then getting on to karmas, highs, and then getting on to just anything to try and avoid the rugs that they were on, and then taking antipsychotic when things got too much. That is not proven, but I believe that's what's caused the diagnosis of schizophrenia. So I just want to say, add that there. He's awkward and he can be painfully introverted. He feels like a cast out. He feels not loved or lovable. He's got a sexual drive to him. He's got a regal in him, and he's got a rage that's invisible. There was a motive of a crime of passion energy, and I'll explain that in the motive section. Around 3:30, he was spiraling. He was jacked. He was like going on. I'm gonna do this, you know. And 3:45 is where he snapped, but he's also waiting for the bedroom light to go off. A snapping of his mind, jacked on rugs, and I said what type of rug I think he was on, heron. I'm just saying that word, but it's the similar word. Hoping for a love that went wrong, not seen, felt wronged, shadowed, ego dented, so need to do something. Something with already feeling invisible, rejected, specifically the highly sociable people that are open communicators, bubbly, easy partiers, can land here and people are like, hey, how are you doing? And they just flow into the relationships with ease and magnetize people towards them. Yes, there was a rug issue and high on them. He targeted a prime person, and I'm going to go into that because although they say Maddie, and I wonder if that's going to come out as because the knife sheath was next to her bed, or was it because he'd seen her prior? And I'm not talking that night. That night he was at two places they were at. And they should have, I guess the camera is so focused and not far out, but he was there. And I think if one girl was a prime, but the other girl, which I'll get to, raged him so much that even if she hadn't slept in the other one's room, there was a big potential for her to go as well. Xana and Ethan are definitely collateral damage. Why was Dylan and the other girl left? A couple of reasons. I'm just going to say it now because it's difficult to remember what I channel or say. One is I feel like Xana, Ethan, Kaylee and Maddie were like closer in terms of where they would go. I don't mean necessarily that night, but hanging out. I feel like the other two were a bit more occasionally with them, but also had their own group, their own schedule. So it was not part of them. BK had seen that these four kind of are majority together, although it's always Kaylee and Maddie, Xana and Ethan the most. Secondary would be those four, like if they had parties and stuff. So there was those four that would be more kind of known to him from what he'd seen in terms of stalking, in terms of what he'd seen. Remember I said he'd been in that house prior. And I also feel he knew the house, but I feel like he had either drawn something or he'd got an outline from something that could have been the maintenance person, I said. Because in the first reading, I just suddenly got, I feel like they need plumbing and maintenance work. In the second reading, we got the cops. I don't know why my throat is closing and spirit is like that's on purpose for you not to talk. Continue what I was going to say. Which reminds me, if you're a member of Patreon, I'm going to go right into Epstein and Ghislaine a bit further. There would have been a big difference on the outcome if they were all asleep. When he sent out surveys, so I've been told that he sent out surveys, it was actually, he was getting a thrill, but it was kind of like a way of trying, he doesn't know, but his inner self was trying to mitigate him actually doing the practical side of this through understanding further that would hopefully feed what's in him to not obviously act, that it'll feed that unknown enough. The surveys that he sent out, I think, was it to crime people, criminals, to get like what they were doing, but it was also part of his study, to feed the thrill and endorphins that he was seeking, that inner self. But I feel it also triggered a bit more because there was still a lack of fulfilling those endorphins. There was a kind of like an understanding of it more, but the lack of the feeling was there. I feel at the moment, and I think this is going to change in the next 25 to 30 years, and I go into a date, I would say 2030, maybe 2032, 2030, 2029 to 2032 average. I think he's going to change and he's going to have a slap. But at the moment, and that's when, if he tells a story, then I think that's the time we will get the most truth of the story. I'm not going to say we're not going to get tidbits, but I see that at the moment he will get bored in prison eventually, and then he's going to be, when he gets invites to speak and assessment, it's going to be that driving of new fantasy endorphins. But it's not that he will tell the whole story, and at the same time he won't want to have the story of what the prosecution or people put out there, which is not going to be the full truth of what he was doing. And also he doesn't want to be seen as that failure either of a storyline that looks completely different and looks narrated by people that don't know. So he kind of justified the crime in his head. He didn't feel the remorse kind of side. It's taking back power. It's the practical side of his study. I feel there was a sense that he was watching the news and media on this. There was agony of around him being a loner, but people couldn't feel that. It was kind of like he just wants to be a loner, and we've got some good friends, but then he knows that how dark and wild his thoughts were. They were probably not on the side he could express. He was really emotionally triggered, and that's it. Tonight is the night. Buzzing and adrenaline, drugs, heroin, and maybe even Red Bull. He could have even had a whiskey and coke, but like I said, with him, it's in the energy is H. Powerless and an outlet to find an outlet with all things mentioned. To find his own freedom was what he was seeking, and an outlet for the endorphins and everything he felt. But ironically, what he did didn't free him. So what he was looking for freedom, what he did didn't actually free him. It obviously, in a different way, in a more physical way, external force, he's jailed. He's captive now. He's not free at all. I don't think he has any prior crime, right? Convictions. I think I've put that in time, which kind of answers a question that I mentioned earlier. In time they'll get to talk, and I think especially in Jan 2024 he said something to his lawyers which would have been a truth or a partial truth, but the story will need a couple of decades. Trust it around, so not, 2029 is just around the corner. I'm thinking 2000s, look at me. So 2049 to 2052 is when I think we're going to get more of a story, more of the truth. So let's go to the motive. I did write the motive, so I'm going to tell you what I believe the motive. So yes, by the way, when you look, does he have blue or brown eyes? Sometimes I see the brown, sometimes I see the blue. What is the official thing? Does anyone know? Okay. So, you know, like I said, with the motive, it was something around, we said about everyone saying Maddie. So that to me says that I'm trying to find where I really wrote the motive, because I don't want to repeat what I might miss, but I'm going to say what I know is the motive. But I'm just seeing I've not missed anything else that I wanted to, or I've got a couple of questions. Okay, so there's a few motives here. Firstly, this criminology and psychology, he got so deep in it. Remember what I've just described him back in Feb 2nd, 2024 is the date I've got here. So much endorphin, so much into crime. If you study something or get fixated on something, obsessed with something day in, day out, and want to be the best at it, trust me, you can get a bit too obsessed. How do I mean this? Some of you might know what I mean, and it could be from silly things that your mind tells you that you should do, or something bad will happen, so you do it. That's an example. If one of the girls that he had tried to approach had said yes to get to know him, to go on a date or something, or given him the time of day, would this have happened? Maybe not that night. But trust me, that night, if he could not have got in the house in any way, something else was going to happen. So yes, maybe the target, the prime target was who they're saying. But she's not the only female in the world that he would have eventually wanted to try to get hold of. And although there was a crime of passion, or a crime of passion energy because of what happened, what I've said to you, what I mentioned about how he feels in and about himself, and then what exactly happened when he might have tried to approach. Now, I don't believe he was stalking for months and months, but he knew a fair bit of where he'd seen and watched, and it could have been online on Instagram. So a stalking energy, not only from outside the house, and I'm not talking at the night at those two places, I'm talking for a month or so before. I think it was going to end up being that if he didn't channel the energy in the right area, it would have been someone else. Now, if Maddie is the prime target, I want to say that Maddie's energy, which reminds me to go into their energy, gave him this softer, gentler touch, and she's beautiful, right? although he was quite irritated, he wasn't so irritated by Maddie in terms of her energy. If she approached him, quietly let him down, would have been different to Kaylee. Kaylee would have been louder in terms of letting him down. He saw Kaylee very rambunctious. Kaylee's bolder, and I think as a physical, forget the face, physical down, Kaylee was more his type. But she irritated him, especially that evening, because I think Maddie's quieter, where yes, she's popular, she's loved, she might have seen people, she might be like, hey, yeah, and she might give him a hug. Kaylee be like, whoa, I'm here, we're here, yeah. And it's kind of like, okay, I can't reach, if it is Maddie, I can't reach Maddie. And Kaylee's kind of in the way. Physically, as a sexually, Kaylee would have been his type. Why do I say that? I feel like he liked the women kind of stuff. This, maybe a bit of curves. Not chubby, not fat, not like that. But he either just like these. And I'm not saying she had big ones, but I think she was a bit more than Maddie. Although she was slim, beautiful girl as well, she was bolder. And that was pissing him off even more. That had pissed him off. So, for example, Maddie comes to her and says, this crying guy, can you imagine? He's approaching me like, does he really think that I'd go out with him? I've just ended a relationship with X, and can you remember, like, would I go from that to that? It's like, right, creep. And so, although Maddie would quietly say, she won't be like, oh, I can't say creep, it's not nice for me to call someone. No, she'll say it. She'll say it quietly. She's a more quiet, gentle, softer energy, and he got that from her, and he liked that because it was like nurturing, loving, and beautiful girl. And I think he'd seen Maddie first. But I can't get away from Kaylee being his kind of type, and Kaylee really rattled him. I don't know if I've explained what I mean by how she did. I hope I, and it's kind of like she put a barricade there. And that's if Maddie was the prime subject, prime person. And that's why I say, even if they, because at first I was like, if they didn't sleep in the same room with the other, but he was there that night and he's seen Kaylee before, but I don't think he's met her person to person so close as that night. Is kind of like, do you know when you feel like someone's gonna turn you into some loud, obnoxious, rambunctious person? You're already popular, you're already just flowing, have the time of your life, everyone loves you, a lot of people want to be with you, but then you're gonna turn into, there's a barricade of this person that's just like louder, bolder, definitely not going to give you the time of day, definitely going to tell you you can do so much better than him, whereas this person seems softer, gentler, that might actually give me that time of day. So that's why I think Kaylee is also part, and I don't want to go further into prime and not prime suspect, but I do want to say maybe he'd seen Maddie somewhere else in person, not on talking online, prior to this date, where Kaylee wasn't there. I'm not sure. But there is something with Kaylee. I do want to say that. There is something with Kaylee. I hope I've got this across clear enough. It's very difficult for me to kind of and then I've got more about him here. So this was also done, this was done in March 2025. Bryan has the power to transform, yet there's some trauma in him. He's very intimidating. He's poker face. He smiles and you think like, what the F? It's like having a coffee in a Starbucks. I've said it again. Oh, not Starbucks. Don't go to Starbucks. Boycott. That's too dark and tense, but no idea that they scare people, that they intimidate people, when sometimes they just actually want to be, in the crowd, flow easy into relationships. It's their natural face, even though they look too dark, their poker face, they look too cold. Psychology would have been a good subject for them. They feel trapped in relationships, yet they're dependent, yet he's dependent, yet there's an independence seeking. He feels blocked from a lot. What his own truth and how to live it, he feels blocked. Yet he fears of being alone. Was completely alone in a past life and probably in a tortured area, starved, maybe beaten. He relied on himself, so he was a loner. This could have been that he either had more power in that lifetime or to compromise to live his life and identity and be part of society. So someone else could be in relationships and that what is giving them. I don't know what I'm saying there, sorry. He can be very defensive on anything and very sensitive, and that would be when he's felt the trauma. The failure of something, self-failure, is big. And there's a bit of trauma there of like an element of his childhood that feels that it might have got tainted. When you have this in your life, you balance your disappointments, try and find that silver lining. Instead of being of an abuse or others, and if you did have abuse, then you transform that. You could have been quite powerful as a mentor psychologist to other people. He can be quite intuitive. Now remember I said that spirit would be pushing him to tap into spiritual side of him. He likes discussing darker occult, curious statements that might have been made would trigger intuitive insights, but it was shocking to others. So what I mean there, he might have made statements that had some intuitive insights that others might have found shocking, and that's why sometimes, most of the time, he just kept quiet. He could have been a bit clumsy when younger. He has a self-contained power, and he's quietly wrestling with himself. He tries to penetrate to people, yet he could have been an amazing psychologist. He felt cold and awkward, but there is a warm side inside. There is also a raging inside. There is also an endorphin seeking. He can be aloof he can be more aloof than sweet. But people such as this can be saviors to the ones they love, if they remain on the right path. He has bursts of paranoia. Could have. In this life, he could face wounds and relieve the wounds of others and insights to someone that they're trying to seek the truth within themselves. But working alone on his trauma would not help him. He needs someone he trusts, he loves, and that he fully trusts, and someone who does stand by him. That would have helped him work through this. So here I see an example of a psychologist who's helping successfully others, but their own pain is not getting sorted through. Yet that makes them the best, yet holds them back from being sensational and exceptional in their field, because the transition and transparency and transformation of this person comes through themselves, their path that takes them 10 steps forward beyond the successful name that they already created for themselves. That's just an example. That I'm not saying that's him. Do I see a motive? Yeah. Studying to be the top forensic psychologists, practical practitioners. People reach out eventually. This is me saying points of what I want to cover. So his motive was relative to, like I said, all those things. But also, what I'm studying has me so fixated. I need to feel it. I need to put the practical side. I need to put these that I'm studying to the boundaries, to test the limits, to see if it's right, or can it be outplayed, or is there something else? As well as all the internal things that I said is happening within him. I do want to say a big part of this is taking rugs. If you're on rugs, get off the rugs. So there's multiple motives here, and you can see even when it comes down to the root of the female, there's a couple of motives. There's a couple of convoluted energy in there. It's not just one prime target. There's someone that was a block there. There's energy of like the type of people as well. Going back to Dylan, because I don't know if I mentioned it at Bethany, time was why he didn't. Time was of essence. He was already off the adrenaline and done. And then there was those four that were mainly together, like the more popular, or the schedule that was very much the same. But if Xana and Ethan were in the room sleeping, possible he might have left them. But I do get, like, because they are mainly with the other two girls. But like I said, the prime suspect was one that evening. Another was in the energy for the reasons I explained. But with them saying this was just purely because maybe a girl turned him down, or Maddie had turned him down. He wanted to be with her. He was rejected. He was bullied, etc. No. A big part of this is what he studied. He got fixated. He got obsessed in. And everything, you know, just like, I'm going to carry out the practical side. He didn't think he would get caught. I'm going to put it to the test. And that's why he sent those surveys out to try and fulfill. But also, it's kind of like when you learn something, you're like, I need to put this to the test. But obviously, you don't do that in certain areas, decisions of like kind of this kind of crime. So I know I've gone on. I just want to say what I get for the energies quickly, what I'd written. Again, back in March 2025, got written here. Ethan is popular. He's good looking. He's seen as being good looking. He's more outgoing than his brother. His brother gives a softer energy. His brother would probably follow, and he doesn't mind doing that. He's comfortable. He didn't feel less of. He was a bit more of an introvert. But he's such a cute energy, and he's much softer energy. He's more introverted. I don't know what his brother's name, but I get this brother. Xana is outgoing, but she's level-headed, and she's comfortable with herself. She's not obnoxious, but she probably knows a lot of people. She'll enter a place, and she doesn't feel like she needs to push people out to be in the spotlight. Although when she enters, a lot of people will know her. She's got a lot of family. She's got a lot of friends and family, and she also likes to make people laugh. She wouldn't be afraid to say things how it is, but she would think without blurting out directly. Maddie was spotted, and then there was an obsession. She's softer, she's gentle energy, she's quiet, she's not obnoxious. She's a pretty girl, obviously. Kaylee is seen as more rambunctious. She raged him because Maddie was with her as well. Kaylee is bolder. Physically, the looks are more of what I see him going for. BK thinks she's more obnoxious, and that's why she raged him as well. I also get here, there's a father figure to one of the girls, and I get to the girls. And he's like a softer energy that just wants to close this and heal from it because he feels like it's just taking too long and dragging out. And then I've put here, Xana's family will probably want to be respected in private. So I don't know what that's about. This was back in March 2025. So that's what I've got on this edition of BK. Okay, if you're enjoying it, give it a like. Let me know in the comments. I appreciate those of you that I say, do you want more of this? And you tell me you do. So I know that you're not bored of me yet. And I'm going to try and get this published and see where Mr. Little Doggy is. I think he's gone upstairs. And I will see you in the next one. Is anyone going to be... Will they be broadcasting the 23rd? I think so, right? Maybe we'll watch that and do a bit of an assessment of what we all think. So if you liked this, please, I don't mean when I say those one-liners, because I didn't channel the energy, but I do want to say something. If I were to channel an energy, I think and the next one I'll tell you a bit more of what I get of that night as well. I think Kaylee could come through very fast to me. I've not sat on this, but I also got something around, I think Ethan might have felt that Xana was being stalked by BK and he was a bit pissed off with that. There's him being irritated, and you remember I said that evening Ethan had to step in on something. Anyway, we'll do that in the next one, and I'll go through a little bit of that night. And I guess there's going to be a lot to be covered in this. So I'm truly thankful. Take care of yourselves, and you can always catch up on the other thing. If you're tuning in from the UK, I've been wanting to do a reading on the UK and Keir Starmer, but I just don't know if I've got many UK followers anymore. I know I've got a few UK subscribers that I really appreciate. And so I'm happy to do it for that couple or a few that always watch the videos. And if you are a subscriber, let me know what you're actually watching that's not UK or Keir Starmer. But I do have that. I've had that for the past month that I want to do. I'm just not sure if that's what we want on the channel right now. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.